Hey, welcome back to Common Knowledge, the show where I take a look at 10 common Magic the Gathering cards, tell you if they're any good in the Pauper format or not. Let's jump right in and see what our first card of the day will be. It is Psychic Barrier, blue, for an instant counter target creature spell. Its controller loses 1 life. Whew, it is a counter spell, but it's not a particularly good one. When you are paying counterspell mana, blue, and you're only being able to counter creature spells, we have cards that do that better for cheaper, or at least more flexibly, because they remove soul is 1 and a blue, and essence scatter, which is the same thing, is 1 and a blue. So you can play that in other decks that aren't just blue. You can splash other colors, or splash blue, I guess, if you're playing that stuff. So the extra effect really needs to be something. If you're taking out roughly half the spells that you might be able to counter, because we play a lot of creature spells. I mean, you play a lot of both spells, but or all the kinds of spells. But I would say creature spells show up quite a bit, especially in the Pauper format. So what are you getting by saying we're not going to let you counter instants or sorceries or enchantments or artifacts with this? What is this doing extra that makes it good? And the answer is its controller loses a life. No. This is one of the worst. I mean, it doesn't have like an active downside, right? It's just that it's got so much competition, and that competition is really strong compared to this. We're going to go with a 2.8. It does still counter stuff, but you just have so many better options to you. I would play 4 essence scatters over this any day. And then if I needed more, I'd play remove souls. I don't need psychic barrier, so we'll stick with that score and move on to our next card, which hopefully will be a little bit more interesting. Dawn Charm. Okay, Dawn Charm's good. Dawn Charm's really good. I think Dawn Charm's really good. Maybe not necessarily in the Pauper format, but just generally. Let's read it. Dawn Charm is 1 and a white for an instant. Choose 1. Either prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. Pretty good. Regenerate target creature. Not too bad either. Or counter target spell that targets you. These are all good things. these are pretty solid things. I think the fog is probably the best mode on this. For the Pauper format anyway. Like, fogs can be pretty solid. And so having a fog, even if it costs twice as much as a normal fog does, that's not bad. And regenerating a target creature is also good, just from a protection spell kind of way. And countering target spell that targets you can also be pretty darn solid if there's something that targets you with making you like duress or something. I guess you wouldn't really want to counter that, because there's you're paying more mana than anyway. Duress is not the thing that you counter. We've learned that in plenty of ways. But there are cards that you would want to counter that will target you from something, that will force you to target opponent sacrifices a creature. Well, what if I said you can't target me? So no, thank you. Yeah, I like Dawn Charm. It's relatively expensive for a Pauper card, but that is because it is really darn useful in Commander, and you've seen it in Commander sets before. So this is a great card. Pauper wise, you probably have better options available to you for any of these reasons, but having the modality of having any of those things available to you isn't bad. I don't know. I'm still going to give it a pretty decent score. I'll go as high as a 4.2. Dawn Charm really good. And if we're going to Commander, I'd go even higher, because it has a lot more usefulness in the Commander format. On a 10 scale for Commander, I'd bump this all the way to like a 6.8 or something. Like, it's really good in that format. I have it in at least one white deck, maybe 2. Really good card. Anyway, what's our next card for the Pauper format? Garen Brigg Paladin is 4 and a green. You know what I'm going to say. 4 and a green for a 4/4 giant knight with adamant. If at least 3 green mana was spent to cast this spell, this creature enters with a +1/+1 counter on it, and this creature can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. All right, let's play the game. Is this better than Avenging Hunter? No, it's not. It's not. A 5 mana 4/4 already slipping up. But you can make this a 5 mana 5/5, I suppose, if you're paying a bunch of green mana. That's pretty easy to do in in any green deck, really. So okay, that's better than an Avenging Hunter. This thing doesn't have trample, but it does also have an evasive thing on its own of not being able to be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. That could, if you're going against your opponent's go wide deck, that could be all of their creatures. So now this thing can walk in unimpeded. That seems okay. And even if they have a couple of big creatures, they're forced to block with those big creatures. They can't just chump with the small guys. So you might get a pretty good deal out of it. It's really close, but it doesn't give you the initiative. That's it. Like the initiative just draws you a card in that it puts a basic land in your hand. So that's pretty close to drawing a card, and when you need a land, that's a really good thing to add to your hand. And then the initiative just ends up giving you so much more value with the trap making your opponent lose 5 life and putting more counters on your guys, so your Avenging Hunter actually becomes bigger than this guy at some point. It's just no contest, and it will continue being no contest for almost any green creature that's 5 mana. It's hard to compete with. If Avenging Hunter was out of the format, this still probably wouldn't catch on to any real deck, but it wouldn't be so obvious that it's outclassed. We'll go ahead and give it a 3.6. I do like it, but come on. We got a card that's just instantly better. TVA Bureaucrat. I remember. Okay, and I'm getting hoisted on this one a little bit. TVA Bureaucrat is 1 and a blue for a 1/3 human advisor, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn and can't be blocked. I remember looking through the Marvel cards when I did my full Pauper set review, and I said, "Wow, this thing seems cool. Like, what if you put this in a mono blue terror deck? Because what if you didn't need the 1 mana guy, the my god, I can't why can't I remember names of cards today? The 1 mana guy who turns into the 3/2 flyer, Delver of Secrets. You could replace Delver of Secrets with this guy, and the idea here is that you could play Thought Scours and whatever and Brainstorms, and you pump this guy up pretty decently, and he can't be blocked. So if there is a board stall, which might happen with your big 5/5 Tolarian Terrors, if your opponent's got something big and doesn't want to swing in, and you don't want to swing in, like this guy can swing in unimpeded. Like he can attack unblockably, and that's great. He's got like a form of prowess on him. Fantastic. You can clear these board stalls and you can get in for a ton of damage. So I thought it was really cool. I thought it was worth considering for those decks. And then one of you very helpfully pointed out, we've gotten this card before, and I forgot the name of it. I think I ended up buying a couple copies because it wasn't Universes Beyond, so I liked it even more. But we've gotten this card before with this exact same text, with the exact same power and toughness, with this exact same cost, and sees no play. So I guess this also will see no play, and I was wrong. But I still think it's cool. I really do. And I want to give it a pretty decent score. I'm going to give this a 4.1, which maybe that's just digging myself a hole deeper. But I still like the idea of this. Also, it's a 1/3. Like, it can block a bunch of stuff if your opponent's in a go wide thing or they're playing red. This doesn't die to like breath weapons and things like that. Like, that's cool. That's cool. But yeah, I guess it's not quite good enough. I like it though. Terminal Moraine is a land that taps for colorless, or you can pay 2 and tap and sacrifice this land to search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. This was originally from Plane Shift, where maybe it made sense. and then Dominaria Remastered, where I don't think it makes sense at all, because I think we learned at that point we just have a lot better lands than that. Dominaria Remastered would have come after Time Spiral, so we already had Terramorphic Expanse, which is just this, but without the cost. Like, what if you just didn't have to pay to go get the basic land? So we already had Terramorphic Expanse, and then very quickly after that, we would have gotten Evolving Wilds, which is just the exact same thing. So you don't need this card anymore, and in fact, it's really, really bad when you consider all the other basic fetch land things that we have in the format. Yeah, this is terrible. I gotta go for a 1. Part of me just wants to give it a 1. I guess I have to. Yeah, we're gonna go for a 1. There's zero reason this should ever show up in one of your decks. I'd say in any format really, and unless you're maybe it's like a pre-modern. I mean, I wouldn't even play this in pre-modern, and I don't think you would either. But maybe like some kind of budget pre-modern. You'd really have to pile on the reasons, the limitations of what cards could go in there before this. I mean, it's not. Sorry. Okay, hang on. I'm saying this wrong. This is not exactly the same as a Terramorphic Expanse or an Evolving Wilds. Those cannot tap for colorless mana, so this can be an untapped land when it comes into play. That's it. It deserves more than a 1. It still should never show up in any of your decks, though, because you have the landscapes. Let's go with that. Let's go with the Modern Horizons landscapes. Those can come into play untapped and tap for colorless, and they don't cost anything to sacrifice themselves and go find one of 3 basic land types. Not all 5, I guess, like this can. All right, I'm going to amend my score. This is still a terrible card. Still don't play it. That all is true. But I will amend my score to a 1.5. It can get you any land type or any basic land that you need. Okay. It's still really bad. All right, let's move on. To backup agent, 1 and a white for a 1/1 human citizen. When this creature enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. That is some clean magic right there. So it can be a grizzly bear because you can put the counter on itself. That's always good. But being able to put the counter on another creature is also pretty useful. I like the art on this. That's okay too. And then if you have any sort of blinking or bouncing stuff, you can do that with this guy and put those counters on other creatures, and that's okay. This is okay. But it doesn't quite do enough. I think it would need some kind of keyword to make it make sense to me. Like even if it had something not great like vigilance, I could start to try to make justifications. But when it's this vanilla, I don't think so. Well, I'll still give it like a 2.5. Maybe even better than that. We can bump it up to like 2.8, but nothing higher than that. Hobble Fiend is great art and fun to say. 1 and a red for a 2/1 devil with trample, and you can pay 1 and sacrifice another creature to put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Okay. That's pretty cool. Red has lots of ways of sacrificing artifacts, and it does have some ways of sacrificing creatures, but there aren't as many repeatable creature sacks in red. And this is kind of going for a carrion feeder type thing, but in red. Now, carrion feeder, you can sacrifice the creatures freely, but this guy can block, unlike the carrion feeder, and also has trample. That's really good. That's really good. I don't love paying for the effect every time. I don't like because the cost already feels like, man, I'm sacrificing a creature. That's probably a big deal that I'm doing that. But sacrificing a creature, making this guy bigger, man, I actually just made I've got these mini decks that I think I talked about a couple times, and one of them does like Mardu mobilize stuff, and So it's making a bunch of little 1/1 guys that will eventually die anyway. So what if you just sacrifice them for extra value? And a guy that tramples seems pretty good. I'm gonna have to consider putting that in there. I'm actually gonna have to write this one down. I did not know about Hobble Fiend. I was not playing Magic in 2021, so Hobble Fiend. Neat. For the Pauper format, not quite good enough. Red just doesn't need creature sacking as much as something like black does, or even white does, and we have the decks that can kind of do that already. We have the creatures that can do that already for cheaper. I still do like a 2 mana 2/1 trample with this ability. It's probably a good card. I want to give it a pretty decent score. I'll go for like a 3.9, but it's not gonna show up in one of your decks. I'm almost positive. But it is cool. It is cool. Cool cards get good scores in my opinion. City Pigeon, despite being a Marvel card, well, Spider-Man card first, but then Marvel card as well. Spider-Man cards are Marvel cards. What do you want from me? City Pigeon is a single white mana for a 1/1 bird. It's got flying, as most birds do. And when this creature leaves the battlefield, you create a food token. Not dies, but leaves. So there was some thought when we saw this card that does this go into Ortov Blade, something where you're bouncing a lot of stuff, make yourself a lot of food tokens. It's a 1/1 flyer. It can get in for damage. It can get in for like the ninjutsu stuff, your Mukotai Ambusher, or eventually after this card was printed, you had a Rokusaki that can come in. Kiba Gang Shinobi Reckoners, whatever, a Kuki game, yeah, the ones that make your opponent discard 2 cards when they do combat damage. Kiba Gang Shinobi, that's what it's called. So you had a number of options of getting more food tokens and doing stuff with this. Like that's cool. It's a good turn 1 play. You could also turn 1 play this. Well, no, I was gonna say you could turn 1 play this into Glinthawk, but you need to have the food token on the board first. So you'd have to find a way of getting rid of this before that. Anyway, still a 1/1 flyer for 1 mana, already halfway decent, and then this is a decent trigger of getting these food tokens. It's not bad. It's seen the tiniest bit of play. I think we've realized that we can just do slightly better than that. I think when you have a card like Cryogen Relic that came out and was also a leaves the battlefield thing, and then this came out soon after that, people were like, "Oh, well, it's kind of just like Cryogen Relic," and it's not. It's not. Cryogen Relic just draws you cards, and that's a lot better than this. And Cryogen Relic also had an enters trigger to draw you a card as well. This has no enters trigger, so you're not getting that double value that Cryogen Relic can give you. It's not bad though. I do like it. It has shown some promise. It has shown up in a couple decks, and it might show up in some more decks going forward. Maybe it's the bird creature type, maybe it's the flying, maybe it's the ninjutsu stuff that I talked about, and then giving that extra value of the food tokens. Maybe. So, yeah, I think it's all right. I'll go for a 4.8, like such on the cusp, because it has seen a little bit of play. Like maybe it gets that 5, but I think it's fallen out of favor just enough that I'm gonna dip it down to a 4.8. But this is a solid Magic card, despite being a Spider-Man card. Giant Octopus is not a solid Magic card, but it is a classic Magic card, and I do want to give it some props. Originally from Portal, but this 7th edition one, and the 7th edition foil one is $2.24. Too much, but just the regular 7th edition one, good enough for me. I do like this art, this Heather Hudson art. But Giant Octopus, 3 and a blue for a 3/3 Octopus. That's it. It's a Hill Giant in red. It's got a cooler creature type. Might not be a better creature type, but it is a cooler creature type. Yeah, Giant Octopus, it's pretty bad. I'll give it a. Do Hill Giants get a 2? Grizzly Bears get a 2. No, I think this has to be like a 1.8. It's it's an octopus, so you got to have a 0.8 on it. There you go. That's the justification. Bane's Invoker, something we did recently. No, maybe we just did another Invoker recently. Bane's Invoker is 1 and a white for a 2/2 human cleric with Windwalk. You can pay 8, and up to 2 target creatures each get +2/+2 and gain flying until end of turn. So like anything that's called Invoker, well, is it anything? Most cards that are called Invoker, they have some giant activated ability that can be repeatedly paid, and if you have infinite mana of some way, most of them can win the game. This one could. It's not as good as the green one that gives trample, because that can kind of guarantee the damage goes through. But giving 2 different creatures flying and the pump is pretty solid. As we've said before, the red one is probably the best one, because that just deals direct damage and you can just instantly do it. If you get the infinite mana, then you just instantly do it on the spot. If your opponent tries to respond, then you just respond right back and do it more. Your opponent gets a chance to kill these creatures before they come in and attack, and that makes this one worse. But it also makes it better than something like the black one of these that just gives a creature -3/-3 for the invoker cost. And you go, what are you doing? I guess I clear the board, but I didn't. I had infinite mana and I didn't kill the opponent. It's terrible. So this one, like, kind of middle of the pack, and we'll go for a 4, just a 4 on that one. And let's keep on going to Eldrazi Devastator. 8 mana for an 8/9 Eldrazi with trample. And that's it. And that's kind of not good enough for the Pauper format, but just look at this thing. Joseph Meehan did a fantastic job with the art of this one. This guy looks scary. It could go in your deck for sure. Your Monstertron deck, costs 8, so you'd need more than your Tron mana, and that can feel a little bit bad. And I think we just have cards that end up being better than this. Maelstrom Colossus being able to put in other things, and the Boulder Branch Golem even being smaller than this. It's a 6/5 instead of an 8/9. It gains you all that life when it comes into play. Brambleworm gains you life and has reach, and like that can be useful too. But just a big dumb 8/9 that any deck can play. It's something. It's something. I mean, even in like an Eldrazi deck, you should be playing the Hand of Emrakul, I think, instead, because like that's the one that you can sacrifice a bunch of spawns to and pay instead of its mana cost. Yeah, you can sacrifice 4 Eldrazi spawn rather than pay its cost. So now you're getting a 7/7 with Annihilator 1. I think 7/7 Annihilator 1 is probably better than 8/9 Trample, especially when you can get the alternate casting cost off. So Eldrazi Devastator doesn't really have a home in the Pauper format, but it is a cool card. I was just talking about those mini decks that I made. This is in one of those mini decks, just because it's kind of cool to cast a big dumb thing. Even if it's not necessarily a good Magic card, it is just a big dumb thing that is very fun. And I'll give Big Dumb Fun 2.9. No, it's got to be higher than a 2.9, right? 3.4. Yeah, 3.4. Let's do a bonus card. It's Highway Robbery. Whew, whew, whew. Heater. This is going to be the best card of the day by far. 1 and a red for a sorcery. You may discard a card or sacrifice a land. If you do, you draw 2 cards, and it plots for 1 and a red, which means you can pay 1 and a red, exile this card from your hand, cast it as a sorcery on a later turn without paying its mana cost, but you can plot only as a sorcery. So this is rad. This card is so good. It's one of those discard 1, draw 2s that we see in red that costs 2 mana, and those are already good. What makes this one better, though, is sometimes you don't have to discard the card. If you're in red, you sometimes don't mind sacrificing the land. So sacrificing a land and picking up 2 cards, now you're getting card advantage in red. That's really good. That's really good for some of the things you can do. So that would already make the card something to consider in most of these red decks. Mono Red Madness or any of the Madness style decks would probably want a card like this just with that text. But the plot makes this extra rude, because when you're able to plot this on a turn where you don't really need to do anything, and then on the subsequent turn, you cast this for free, now the cards that you draw off of this effect are are much more castable because you have all your mana open when you, or you could have all your mana open when you cast this from plot. That's really good. That's, oh boy, this card is so good, and it hurts me a little bit that this Outlaws of Thunder Junction stuff is actually sees a whole lot of play. Because I wasn't a huge fan of this set, but I can't deny this is a heater. This is such a good card. This is, I'd say this is probably the second best discard one, draw two spells in the Pauper format, at least. Number one has to go to the grab the prize. Easy. Easy. But after that, this is probably the best one. Really, really good card. I gotta go for like a, God, how high do I go? I'm gonna go with an 8.2. It's that good. It's not, and as long as Sneaky Snacker continues to be in the format, without Sneaky Snacker, this goes way down. All those cards do. They're not unplayable at that point, but they see significantly less play when you can't get the additional card advantage of Sneaky Snacker. Like, yeah, you still have plenty of Madness cards that you can play with this, and it works with all those. But if the Sneaky Snacker went away tomorrow, which doesn't seem like it's going to, but maybe in the next few weeks or months, we'll see. But yeah, with it in the format, this thing rules. This thing rules. 8.2. I'm so serious about that. Great card. Great card to finish the day with. I think tomorrow will be hard to top, but we'll see if we can do it. Till then.